Welcome back to the Perspective, where I do cultural commentary, go over some life lessons, and everything in between. Guys, today we have some more big news. In fact, I think for any of us paying attention to the news lately, we probably saw this moment coming or felt like it was coming, but Joe Biden has dropped out from the presidential campaign. He is no longer going to be seeking the nomination of his party, the Democrats, and he has gone on to endorse his VP, Kamala Harris, to take the spot. This is kind of a big deal because in my lifetime, I don't think I've seen anything like this before, and it really just feels like a giant mess that could have probably been avoided. But let's get into it real quick. I have a statement here. Let's check it out. Let's read it from the man himself, and then we'll get into some of the broader discussion about it. All right. Wow, internet going crazy over here. All right, so here's the statement. We have, my fellow Americans, over the past 3.5 years, we have made the great progress as a nation. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made this historic investments in rebuilding our nation, in lowering prescription drug costs for seniors, and expanding affordable health care to a number of Americans. We've provided critically needed care to millions of veterans exposed to toxins. Sorry, I'm having a Biden moment myself. All right, sorry. We provided critically needed care to million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, and passed the most significant climate change legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and focus solely on fulfilling my duties as the president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more details about my decision. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank the Vice President Kamala Harris for being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and trust you have placed in me. I believe today what I always have, that there is nothing America can't do when we do it together. We just have to remember we are the United States of America. Joe Biden. Yeah, I mean, that's it. It's kind of crazy because when I think about it, I guess what's really upsetting about this is that not that he dropped out, because I was one of the people who believed he should have, especially after that debate. I guess what's frustrating about this for me is that when I think about this, it feels like something that was avoidable, right? Because I mean, let's replay what the past 3 weeks have been up to this point, right? You have a debate at the end of June with, Joe Biden versus Donald Trump. And after that debate, it doesn't matter who you were. Everyone walked away from that debate thinking, wow, I cannot believe this just happened. This is probably one of the worst debate performances we've ever seen. And it's like I said, I did a video on this as well. It's not really that Trump even did good per se. It's just that Biden looked terrible. He looked incoherent. He looked not there. He kind of looked like he was melting. And if you know anything about how Joe Biden used to look, it's obvious that you're watching a man in decline. And it's really sad, right? And so I guess what sucks about it, and why I say it was really preventable, is because the Democratic Party had pretty much chosen to shield Joe Biden from us, or Joe himself, the people around him, to the to the point where there wasn't primaries done within the Democratic Party. Like normally when there's let's be clear. If there's a sitting incumbent, you don't normally have primaries. But at the same time, if your inner circle doesn't say anything about your current position and they let you keep going in the race and think that ain't no one going to notice until November, then they're not doing you any favors, right? And so it's frustrating because there was people who tried to run in a primary to challenge Joe, trying to call out some of these things. Again, you have your Marianne Williamson, your RFK, your Dean Phillips, a lot of these guys. And I understand some people are going to look at them and say, oh, they're not serious candidate anyways. But whether you feel that way or not, they were the ones who ran. And had there been a regular primary, we might have had some of the other governors that are now being talked to about, VP or potentially going for this nomination. And we'll get to that a little bit later in the stream. Maybe they would have all joined in and duked it out. But because no one ever challenges an incumbent, we got the situation where effectively Joe Biden was unchallenged. And so the situation that we saw on that debate stage wasn't seen until we got to that debate stage, right? And it's crazy because we should have seen it months ago. And I get it. Some people are going to say, oh, he wasn't in this good state anyway. I already knew he was like that. And to those people, I say, okay, let's be clear, guys. He always kind of had a little thing going on. Like I remember in 2020, it was the Biden gaffes that we were all worried about, but he didn't look like that. All right. There's clearly been a decline that has got worse and worse over time. And it does feel like up to this point, there was a bit of a cover up to get us to this point. And we'll get more into that later as well. Anyways, I think that speaks to why I just feel this is all frustrating, because it really feels like the Democratic Party, Biden, his inner circle, they all really thought that we just weren't going to see it, and hopefully and hope that we can get to a point in November where they would be good. And that's it. Don't worry. You guys don't even have to see this. We'll get to where we have to get to in November, and no one will even have noticed his mental decline. So that's sad. And obviously it backfired after that debate performance. So anyways, at this point, let's go back to Twitter here. So at this point, what we kind of have is he has officially dropped out, and there is, my understanding of this whole situation is correct. There's a process in place. After a primary, so what happens is the parties nominate a candidate, and then the people, we all elect that candidate or whatever candidates. That basically we elect a candidate from the candidates offered from the parties. Right? I'm sorry, I kind of fought to get that out. So the Democrats have a process, the Republicans have a process, the Libertarians have a process, Green Party, all these different parties. They do whatever they do to nominate a candidate. And, if you join those parties, you can vote in their primaries. After a candidate is chosen out from those primaries, you then get to go ahead and pick in November from the list of candidates who you would like to be for that position. So in this case, we're talking president, right? But now that the Democratic primary candidate has dropped out, all the delegates, aka people within the party that were going to officially vote for him to make him the candidate of that party, they're now unpledged. And so they can go really anywhere. They can, you guys can, if you want to bring me in, you can, no, but realistically, they can at this point, at this point, they could actually bring in any single candidate that they want, right? So it brings us to the next point here, which is, with that in mind, there is a process to elect a new candidate. And this new candidate can be anyone. And this person who Biden wants it to be is, of course, I don't know why I went back here, is VP Kamala Harris. So if I could find this clip here, wow. He posted this to Twitter. He says, my fellow Democrats, I've decided not to accept the nomination and to focus all of my energies on my duties as president for the remainder of my term. My first decision as the party nominee in 2020 was to pick Kamala Harris as my vice president, and it's been the best decision I've made today. Today, I want to offer my full support and endorsement for Kamala Harris to be the nominee of our party this year. Democrats, it's time to come together and to beat Trump. Let's do this. So, okay. So you get the idea. Basically, there's going to be a process. It's this DNC convention in August, I think. I'm not too sure. Guys, I'm trying to just learn all this stuff myself. And so basically what you have is a situation where she's not guaranteed to have the spot because she has to go and get the delegates and pass a certain number threshold in order to officially be voted in as the Democrats' nominee for this particular race, right? But he's giving his endorsement. So he's putting his weight behind her. And realistically, it would look crazy if he wasn't, right? That's the woman he chose to be his vice president. And if you were in a situation where he put anyone else, it'd be like, well, did you really think she was the best candidate? So he's probably got some polling, which everyone has been seeing, is that he has been tanking in every single poll up to this point in the swing states and everything that would help him. You know, I guess it took him a while to get out because he really in his mind did not want to let go of this power. But he also keeps saying he believes wholeheartedly he's the best one to beat Trump. But we were seeing poll after poll as the weeks have been going by that he was losing to Trump in basically all the swing states. And even certain states that were not in play were like, they're getting a little shaky. I didn't see it, but I heard something about like New York not being in play, but like losing certain districts that they shouldn't have lost. And his bad position at this point was bringing down everyone down ballot. So basically this pressure was coming from Democrats all over at this point because they're like, hey, you're not just taking yourself down, but you're taking the whole ship down. So anyways, so he endorsed Kamala Harris to be his VP. She's not guaranteed the slot because, again, she has to go into the convention in order to officially clinch it. But I tell you what, I'm under the belief, I have the belief that there are probably not going to be that much Democrats that try to go against Kamala because I feel like once you get the endorsement from the president, a lot of these guys are just scared and they're not going to want to go and challenge her. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't, but they're not going to go and challenge her. Hold on, let me try to get some of this together. And okay. And actually, it's funny because why that's a little off in my view is because, again, if we had a regular primary, then we would know from that primary process if Kamala really was the best choice right now. And I really don't know if she is one way or the other. But if we had a primary process, a regular primary process, which we would have had if Joe just like looked in the mirror and was like, you know what, I think I'm just going to be the transitional candidate that I talked about in 2020 and not run for re-election and have this whole debacle happen right now, right? If that happened, again, we would have probably had all these other candidates join in, all these governors, your Gavin Newsoms, your Gretchen Whitmer's, your Andy Beshears, all these guys people are talking about now who would have been great. They're popular governors in swing states in some cases, or even not swing states, just like typically red states. And these guys maybe would have had a chance to get in and make their case in a regular primary, would have got to know them. The Dem primary voters would have been able to vote them in. But now that's all gone. So the best we can hope for is an open convention. So that's the process I was talking about earlier. All these guys can now jump in and start to make their case for why they should be the nominee. And then the delegates at the convention get to vote for them. Now, again, Joe gave his endorsement to Kamala, so she's likely the favorite anyway. And any of these other folks, if they want to throw their hat in the ring and go against her, they can. But I feel like a lot of them are just going to be scared to do it because they figure, like, what's the point? We're not going to beat her anyway. Because at the end of the day, it's not just Joe Biden delegates. It was Joe Biden / Kamala Harris delegates. So we'll see. We'll see. So I mean, it's crazy. Let's take a moment, get some reactions from some of the other folks in this whole mix at this point. Let's see. I am going to. So actually, that's interesting. Good old Secretary Clinton. I heard earlier that she has also given her endorsement to her and Bill. Her and Bill gave their endorsement to Kamala Harris. So I mean, you're going to start to see a lot of this, right? Some people are going to give their endorsement and say we're getting behind her, so that way this whole open convention process is kind of done with and everyone can move on. And then some people are going to feel a little bit differently, and we'll get to that in a second. So I'm not going to read this whole statement. I guess I should read it. I'm on stream for this, right? Let's do this. All right. Statement from President Clinton and Secretary Clinton. Okay, so both, right? That would make sense. They're a unit. So President Biden has capped his extraordinary career of service with the president and has lifted America out of unprecedented pandemic, created millions of jobs, rebuilt the battered economy. All right, I feel like I don't want to read it because it's going to be a lot of this, but I mean, we know what this is, right? By any measure, he had advanced our founder's charge to build a more perfect union and his own stated goal of restoring the soul of the nation. Okay, see all the fluff, all the fluff. We join millions of Americans in thanking President Biden for all he's accomplished, standing up for America time and time again, and his North Star always being what's best for the country. We're honored to join the president in endorsing Vice President Harris, and we'll do whatever we can to support her. We've lived through many ups and downs, but nothing has made us more worried for our country than the threat posed by a second Trump term. He has promised to be a dictator one day, and the recent ruling by his servile Supreme Court will only embolden him to further shred the Constitution. Now, in this time, to support Kamala and fight with everything we've got to elect her, America's future depends on it. All right, so you're going to start seeing Game of Thrones You're going to start seeing Game of Thrones type stuff for the next few weeks, I think, because you're going to have people bending the knee to Kamala Harris and effectively wanting to anoint her, quote unquote. And then you're going to have some other people who aren't necessarily going to say that exactly because they want an open convention process. And why that's important, and I realize I keep saying it, but I didn't get to this point. The reason why, real quick, the reason why it's probably better for there to be an open convention and for them to not just pick Kamala Harris and everyone stay out is because since we didn't have a normal primary, an open convention will seem like some sort of democratic process. And if anything, it will make her come out stronger rather than just being like you were just handpicked. It'll be like you had to fight for it and you had to earn it in some way, shape, or form. This is kind of the argument I've been hearing, and I'm convinced by it. So at this point, I'm just regurgitating it. This is not, I'm learning about this stuff as you guys are. And I'm just hearing different arguments about it. And that's the one that has me convinced the best at this point. So when you see we endorse her, of course, they're going to get behind her, but I hope that there is one or two people that step in against her and then she can make her case. And then that way we can kind of see if she really is the strongest candidate at this point, because if you're going to go based on what she did as vice president's going to have a hard gig when you think about it, right? Because they don't get the spotlight unless they're given the spotlight by the president. And they're always given these impossible tasks that like no one could do. Like she was given like take care of the border, right? Like I'm pretty sure the Republicans are going to start running that against her. Like you was in charge of the border. Well, great job there. You didn't do great. So that's probably going to be one of their attacks on her. But then also, you know, you're not the one in the spotlight. And so unless you are in the front lines for whatever reason, you might go overlooked, right? It feels like she was kind of sidelined for the past couple of years. We really don't know that much. We haven't really seen her do too much, you know, front and center appearances because the focus is always on the president, right? Whether that is the case, like whether that's her fault or not, who knows? But within the next couple of weeks, we'll see her pop out and we'll see how this works out, right? But okay, where am I going with this? Oh yeah, all right. So just to wrap up, that's why I think an open convention works is because you would not necessarily quote unquote anoint the candidate. You would have the candidate go through a process where they have to kind of fight some other folks. They have to go through some things, and then ultimately they emerge victorious, and then the whole party could unite behind that person after it's done. But it would seem like they earned it. It would seem like they had to fight a little bit. It would seem like they did something, right? So rather than just be like they worked for it. I mean, they weren't just gifted the spot, because again, if we had a primary, she would have had fought off all the other contenders. And if she won in that case, which again, as the VP, she would have been the favorite to do so, then it would feel like legitimate, right? That's the best way to put it. But okay. Let's go back to some reactions here. Then okay, and the reason why I mentioned that, by the way, is because I heard it said, and I'm gonna look for it here. We're gonna look for Obama. So of course Obama jumps in the fray because he obviously has to, right? He's basically one of the party's leaders. He's an ex-president and a very popular one at that. So he says, Joe Biden has been one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me. Today, we have also reminded again. Oh yeah, he did a full statement that I have here. All right. All right, we'll read this real quick. That's fine. It's not that long. All right. Joe Biden has been one of America's most consequential presidents, as well as a dear friend and partner to me. Today, we've been reminded again that he is a patriot of the highest order. 16 years ago, when I began my search for vice president, I knew about Joe's remarkable career in public service, but what I came to admire even more was his character. His deep empathy, his hard-earned resilience, his fundamental decency and belief that everyone counts. I'm ad-libbing here. Sorry, guys. Since taking office, President Biden has displayed the character again and again. He helped end the pandemic, created millions of jobs, lowered the cost of prescription drugs, passed the first major piece of gun safety legislation in 30 years, made the biggest investment to address climate change in history, and fought to ensure the rights of working people to organize for fair wages and benefits. It's going to be a laundry list, guys. I'm sorry. Internationally, he has restored America's standing in the world, revitalized NATO, mobilized the world to stand up against Russian aggression in Ukraine. Okay. More than that, President Biden pointed us away from the 4 years of chaos, falsehoods, and divisions that had characterized Donald Trump's administration. Through his policies, his example, Joe has reminded us of who we are at our best, and the country's committed to old-fashioned values like trust, honesty, kindness, and hard work, a country that believes in democracy, rule of law, accountability, a country that insists that everybody, no matter who they are, has a voice and deserves a chance at a better life. This outstanding track record gave Joe Biden every right to run for re-election and finish the job he started. Again, okay, well, I'll address his thoughts right after. I committed at this point. Let me just get through it, okay? Joe understands better than everyone that the stakes in this election, how everyone has fought for throughout his life, and everything that the Democratic Party stands for will be at risk if we allow Donald Trump back in the White House and give Republicans control of Congress. I also know Joe never backed down from a fight. For him to look at the political landscape and decide that he should pass the torch to a new nominee is surely one of the toughest decisions in his life. True, but I know he wouldn't make the decision unless he believed it was right for America. It's a testament to Joe Biden's love of our country, historic example of a genuine public servant. Once again, putting the interests of American people ahead of his own and the future generations, leaders will do well to follow. Okay, I thought I had a lot more to go. We will be navigating uncharted waters in the days ahead, but I have extraordinary confidence that the leaders of our party will be able to create a process from which an outstanding nominee emerges. This right here is crucial, and we'll get to that in a second. I believe that Joe Biden's vision of generous, prosperous, united America that provides opportunity for everyone will be on full display at the Democratic Convention in August. And I expect that every single one of us are prepared to carry that message of hope and progress forward into November and beyond. For now, Michelle and I want to express our love and gratitude to Joe and Jill for leading us so ably? I'm sorry, I've never seen that word before. And courageously through the perilous times, and for the commitment to the ideals of freedom and equality that this country was founded on. Okay. This right here is very important, at least what I've been listening, at least from what I've been hearing. Because if you notice, there's one thing in Obama's message here that we're missing from, say, Clinton's message, is there is absolutely not an endorsement for Kamala Harris, right? And that's important, because what that means, at least again from what I gathered, is that Obama does not want to, at least at this point, put all the weight of every Democratic leader, all the party bosses, if you will, behind a candidate. He kind of wants it to be at the convention, right? That's what he's mentioning here. Now, again, like I said, Kamala Harris is still the favorite to win at the convention. But if everyone right now were to jump out and be like, oh, party unity, and it's Kamala Harris, then they are effectively anointing her. And it seems like she didn't even work for it, right? Because at the end of the day, the people voted for Joe, not Kamala, right? The VPs, they kind of get picked, but the top of the ticket is the one who people voted for. So in order to have any kind of process, since there wasn't a primary, Obama wants there to be he wants her to be chosen. Well, sorry, not her, anyone to be chosen at the convention. And it's, again, favored to be her, but it realistically could be anyone, right? So this is a very interesting part here because what we're seeing, at least from what I gathered, is that you have the likes of Obama. I heard Nancy Pelosi also has not given an endorsement. So you have like some of the leaders of the party here saying and feeling different things, right? So if Nancy Pelosi's not giving an endorsement to Kamala, but because she's mainly thinking, oh, do it at the convention, no anointing, then we at least get a semblance of like a democratic process. So how do I feel about that personally? I think it's the right thing. I think if it is going to be Kamala, she has to show she could fight for it. Because at this point, she has to show she can fight for it and win. Because at this point, after everything that happened with Joe, I could tell you, as someone who is center left and typically cast my vote for the Dem side, it's not looking good out here for it's not looking good out here for us, right? So yeah, it's one of those things where I would like to see how this all plays out and if she can kind of rise to the occasion, right? Okay, let's see. Let's get some reactions of some other political commentators, because I wanted to speak to some of the sentiments I've been seeing out there and some of the trends and things that people will eventually start to say about the presumptive nominee, whether it be Kamala or anyone else. These are some of the threads I started to kind of pick up. Let me see what I can find first. Okay, actually, I came across one from Krystal. All right. If you guys don't know who Krystal is, a political commentator, a show I actually like to watch a lot, hosted by her and Saga and Jetty, Breaking Points. I get a lot of news from them. These are actually the news guys, not me. I'm just a dude who's here trying to learn some things along with you guys. But I saw a reaction from her earlier, and I'm going to speak to it because some people are going to feel this way as well, right? And let's see. She says, all of this Joe Biden is a great man bullshit is truly sickening. He dedicated himself to the mass slaughter of children in Gaza, and if there is a shred of justice in the world, that will be remembered legacy of his administration. We should not also forget that Biden and his cronies perpetrated a mass cover-up of precipitous decline, and the betrayal made it far more likely that Trump once again wins the presidency. His domestic policy achievements pale in comparison to these realities. Okay, I'll say this. I never really comment. Okay. The Gaza stuff I think is pretty hard, and as someone who doesn't know too much about it, I can say personally, yeah, like you see these videos come across, you see the children in Gaza and all these things happening, you're just like, that needs to stop. And if we're funding it, I would like to make sure that we aren't funding it. But I also get this feeling that if we're being realistic, if you listen to some of the things Trump has mentioned about it, I think in some ways he would have probably been worse or the same. So I don't think there would have been a fundamental difference. And that's not good for the children and people of Gaza. But I think that is a reality there. I think outside of that, being the president is very difficult. You have to make hard calls, and there's going to be things like this on your record that are not going to be great. And so that's not a pass for Joe or for Trump if he was in this position. But it's saying there are going to be some hard things as president, and it would be great if we could see presidents make some real, bold moves with situations like this, and probably, not fund the countries doing this. But again, things are a lot more complicated than that. I'm not educated enough to speak about it, and so I'm going to just leave it there. I don't know if I would say everyone's going to feel the same way she feels in reference to basically the Gaza situation rising above everything else he did in his administration. But that being put aside, and I know that's a big but, I will speak to this part here, because this is the part I kind of wanted to talk about after I read Obama's message and I forgot to get to it. So she said, we should not also forget that Biden and his cronies perpetrated a mass cover-up of his precipitous decline. And this betrayal made it far more likely that Trump once again wins the presidency. This is the part that I truly, again, I kind of can't get over, because even in Obama's speech, he was saying, hey, look, with everything that Joe did, you know, it was great. And if he wanted to go for re-election again, he should have. And I guess in a normal context, he's totally right. There's nothing wrong with that, right? He's actually 100% correct, right? Like, I mean, most presidents, regardless of whether they had a good run or not, will always want to try again. If they didn't have a good run, they said, all right, give me another 4 years. I'll get it right next time. If they had a great run, they say, great, we had a great run. Let's keep it going. Let's do some more. And so that's fine. But the problem really is that if everyone around Joe, including Joe himself, couldn't like see the decline and they decided to keep going for it anyway, because like you guys have to keep in mind, it's not about the next 6 months that he's president. He was asking for another 4 years, right? And I'll get into that a little bit later, because there's some people with some concerns about that as well. In fact, I think I might have seen something from, we could get into that right now. I think I might have seen something from good old Benny Boy. And I get it. These guys are conservatives. They have no love for Joe Biden, but where did I see it? Wow. Random memes. Random memes. I think it might be impossible for me to see it. Where is it? See, this is why I need to bookmark stuff like this, guys. Because as I'm trying to look for it in the middle of the live stream, I could never truly find it. Give me 1 second, guys. I guess you know what I'll do. I'll find what I'm looking for to show it, but I'll speak to the sentiment. There's a growing sentiment out there that it's not just now that Joe Biden has dropped out, right? It's not the fact that he just dropped out. It's the fact that, it's not the fact that he just dropped out from trying to be the candidate for re-election. It's the fact that the candidate for re-election just dropped out because he's probably not fit to keep going for another 4 years. So then what does that mean for right now, right? And this is a thread that you're going to see some conservatives push across, or people who are just like, I'm just asking questions, dude. What is this? You know what I mean? Because realistically, if we're thinking about it, it's a fair question, right? Now, personally, I don't think he's that bad. I know I'm going to get killed in the comments for this. I think he is not in a great position, but I think he's okay to finish out his term, right? I think where he's a smart guy. He's been in politics for a very long time, and I think he does know how to do the job. He's been vice president. He's been in the Senate forever. He's been in politics forever. I think he knows how to do the job. The problem is always going to be that we have is that how does he handle in these situations like campaigning? How does he handle in a debate? How does he handle with actually, letting the world know what his message is and all these different things? And how does he do when it comes to, important conversations, meetings with world leaders, things like that? And I'd say right now, probably not as good as he once did, but can he handle it for another 6 months? I think so. I understand. But I might get killed for that. But I think he's fine to finish out the 6 months. But I think for the people thinking that's not the case, it's fair. It's fair. And you're going to start to see that sentiment go across now, right? So actually I think it was I think I have another one. I think it's let's go back to Twitter here, guys, because this is the fuel for my content today. Random reactions. I don't think I have too much videos. This guy. Okay, this is funny. So this is Nancy Pelosi's reaction, right? She says, Joe Biden is a patriotic American who has always put our country first. His legacy of vision, values, leadership make him one of the most consequential presidents in American history. With love and gratitude to President Biden for always believing in the promise of America and giving the opportunity to reach their fulfillment. God bless America with Joe Biden's greatness and goodness. I get it. Sometimes these things feel over the top, but I understand. Like they did just oust their leader, like of the party, like an American president just got ousted. So everyone's going to make sure they're going above and beyond to give him grace. And I think it's fair. We should give him grace at this point because he made a very tough decision, whether you like him or not. But we'll get to that. We'll get back to that in a little bit. Anyways, where was I going with this? Where was I going with this? I saw something from this guy. Yeah. Sentiments like this. If Biden's unfit to stay in the presidential race, then surely he's unfit to remain president too. Right? And like I said, people are going to have this sentiment and people are going to start questioning this. But at this point, for Joe, he doesn't care. Because he's the president now and he's the president today and he doesn't actually have to campaign anymore. I don't know if he comes out and stumps for whoever eventually is the Dem nominee, but again, he can just take a chill pill at this point. He doesn't have to be as much on it. But what is very important is that the Dem who eventually gets selected, especially if it's like a Kamala, this whole argument about you were complicit in the cover up, you sat right there and you guys all knew and you still, let him go out there. They're going to bring this up. And you know what? It is actually a fair argument. It's 100% a fair argument because, again, it's like if you knew he was in this position and you still let him go out there to be the president and to lead the country and you didn't tell him, hey, maybe don't go for re-election, let there be regular primaries, let the next generation handle this, just pass the torch. If you guys didn't get in his ear and tell him that a year ago, then where are you right now? Were you guys that scared to stand up to the guy until now where he got exposed in a debate setting where that's the most embarrassing situation for him? That's insane, right? That is actually insane. And it's something that is really crazy to again have happened to an American president, right? But at this point, can we really be surprised by anything that happens in 2024? I think it's kind of crazy to think otherwise, right? But yeah, this kind of sentiment is something that I expect to see, and I think it's fair. All right, let's see. I think just real quick, I wanted to mention a few things that I was thinking about in reference to the pros and cons of an open convention, because I should have mentioned it earlier, but what I've been hearing about it, and why I think at least the Nancy Pelosi and Obama position of hey, just go with the open convention might be a good idea for Democrats, right? Okay, so number one, it's a big deal that Joe has dropped out, right? Everyone's talking about it, and with the way the news cycle is and the way the world is in 2024, guys, did everyone forget? Our former president just got shot last week, right? And now it almost feels like, oh yeah, that really just happened, and now we're just on to the next thing. It's so crazy how everything goes fast so quickly, but that's what it is when there are big stories and you get all this attention on something. And so, why I think the convention is probably good, a contested convention is probably good for Democrats, is because all the media is going to be covering it. Again, something like this hasn't happened in a very long time. I think the last time something like this happened was the 60s maybe. And so you were looking at over 40, 50 plus years, all right, of something not happening and then it happening again in the live age of social media and constant, 2-day news cycles, right? So they're going to get all that free media, all that free publicity, and whoever the candidate is that emerges from that will be stronger. Again, right now, it's probably likely to be Kamala, but, if it happens to be anyone else, they'll get free publicity. And then if it is Kamala and there is someone else there, it even speaks to the people who could potentially be her VP pick. Because at this point, we have no idea. There's going to be some person who's handpicked out from nowhere and we know nothing about them, or maybe, the people in their state, if they're a senator or if they're a governor, they know about them, but are they known nationally? Not really. And they're going to get picked out randomly, and we'll get to that point, right? So that's why I think ultimately the convention stuff is probably a good move, because it's just going to bring more eyes to whatever they got going on. And I tell you, this election was already going to be close, and it was going to be really where most people's choices would be like, you probably had like 4 choices, right? You had the Democrats, you had the Republicans, you had independents, maybe you want RFK or Dr. Cornel West, or you had the couch, right? And the couch is for the people who are absolutely unenthused by their options, right? Like, no one is convincing me that this election was, like, in my mind, this was not the election. This is not the rematch that people wanted, right? But we were going to get it between Joe Biden and Donald Trump. But as these things start to happen, people get excited, right? Like, after Trump was shot last week, I did a live stream. Shout out to my guy Clement. We were both here reacting to it live. And we were talking about the fact that we believe after that Trump is going to win, like, guaranteed. Because number one, he was already up in all the polls. And then it winds up being one of those situations where if that was your guy and you saw all the things that happened to him this year, he got indicted, he got convicted. He has, like, and not indicted on just like one charge, multiple charges, right? And then you think of all the stuff with the media and and all the focus on him in the past couple of years. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying he's blameless in that, but nonetheless, right? That's how you feel. And then you feel like they just shot at him. It's like some people feel like, I am going to climb over broken glass to vote for this man. But for Joe Biden, I don't feel like that enthusiasm was there. And so Democrats were just going with the he's not Trump thing, and like, oh, but he's not Trump though. And I'm like, you can only do that but for so long, right? Because in 2024, at this point, Donald Trump has been in the main spotlight of politics for the past 8 years. So even if you really didn't like him before, I feel like everyone's kind of just like a little bit tired of it, right? So I don't think anyone feels, and I'm speaking for myself, I'm not going to speak for everybody. I don't think everyone feels he is as bad as they might have felt he was at his worst, right? So if you're someone who really doesn't like Donald Trump, and you were like, yo, this guy really, like, I need to get him out of here. At this point, you're probably like, if I felt like out of 1 out of 10, he was, I don't know, an 8. No, he's probably like a 5 or a 4. He's probably not as bad as I felt. But why do I say that? Is because if your only motivation was to come out to vote against him, and the Democrats didn't have a positive vision, then why in the world would I think to myself, I'm definitely going to come out right now and vote against him? I might just sit on the couch, because Joe is definitely not inspiring, is where this whole long, this whole long of spiel I'm going on is getting to. But with what's happening here, you finally have some excitement on the Democratic side. Whereas with the Republican side, you had Trump, they had their hero, dude got shot, put his fist up, said fight, 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 and they got their guy at this point. The Democrats, you had someone who had a very terrible performance. And again, if you want to speak about his domestic policy record, there's probably some good things to say there. And I think he could make the case. Sorry, he couldn't make the case. And that's the problem. But someone else probably could, right? Someone else could probably make the case better for him than he can make for himself. Anyways, where was I going with this? Yeah, open convention. Looks good for the Democrats because it brings some excitement to their side in an otherwise unawe-inspiring, set of factors. I don't know. Okay. All right. Let's see. I guess there's just one more thing I wanted to get to, and that was, if Kamala Harris is in fact the Dem nominee, which at this point she's heavily favored to, then it's probably some of the attacks that we might start to see on her. And I feel like it's already starting to get nasty. So for those of us who are looking to be unburdened but by what has been, which is you probably start hearing a lot. It's this Kamala phrase that came out, and these people who are quote unquote coconut pilled. I'll get to what that means in a second. It's pretty hilarious. But I saw this clip from Candice Owens, so let's play it. Let's react to it, and let's get a glimpse as to what some of the attacks against Kamala Harris will start to look like, as people have now just realized that when I say people, I mean conservatives, Republicans, whoever else was basically against Joe, have realized that Joe was not their target anymore. And so now they're looking for who the new target is. And since it might be presumably Kamala, they're starting to look for what they can get on her. Right. So hold on. Let me get this clip. Okay. Real quick, this is a clip of Candice Owens that might have come out from a recent stream of hers. I did not see the whole stream. I just came across this clip myself as I was talking with you guys, but I wanted to react to it live here with you guys because I do get the sentiment of what she's trying to say. So, anyways, let's get into it.
So they understand that it will look really bad if they do not lean in to saying that they really do want Kamala, but even that feels a bit performative to me, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm starting to see articles creep out, and they seem like attacks on Kamala. Again, if we can go into our time machine and go back to 2020, well, every time that someone tried to interject the truth about Kamala, which is that she slept her way to the top, it's a fact. She was with some 6-year-old man, got her start in the political career, and they would go, oh my gosh, how dare you say this? That's so sexist. Well, then suddenly on July 6th, the Daily Mail actually published a headline about the fact that
it's interesting because I've heard people say this before too. And well, okay, well, let's let her get into it more. I want to let her finish her thoughts, but I do have a lot of thoughts about this. Before I jump in, I'm like 40 seconds in. She might speak to some of the things I'm going to say, so I don't want to just randomly interject here.
Kamala Harris was, thoughting through life. And they basically said she got her political start, her political upstart, because she was dating this guy, Willie, can't think of his last name right now. And he was married and he was in his 60s, and Kamala Harris was just a spring chicken. And that is how she entered the political scene. So she was not somebody who was a part of their ecosystem, but they tapped her in 2020 because they were like, oh, like the thing that we always say is that look at the Republican Party, it's so white and there's no diversity. And how are we going to be able to say that if we're running Joe Biden, who's been extraordinarily wealthy his entire life and whose son is becoming extraordinarily wealthy while smoking crack simply because he's doing dirty deals in Ukraine? So what are we going to do? We're going to hire Kamala Harris. We're going to select Kamala Harris to be the vice president. And he's the only person I can think of. And then we can sell. I know that when she was sworn into Congress, she was talking about how she's an Indian, but we'll just sell the people, like, forget the Indian side. Like, now she's back to black. And the streets are talking, ha, 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 ha. And that's what they did. So that is the only reason that Kamala Harris, they literally did not have another person that they felt could be the vice president and allow them to use the isms. You don't like her, you're a sexist. You don't think that she's amazing? You're a misogynist, deep-seated misogyny. You don't want this ticket to win? Is it because Kamala Harris is black? Kinda. I feel like it is. It's because you're a racist. So they just needed her to do the thing.
Okay. All right. I have a couple of thoughts there. And maybe I should have just said the things in between because I'm hoping I don't forget all the things I was going to say. Okay. So first thought. It's weird because I personally don't like when people like to. Okay, I personally don't like when people like to shut down conversation about a particular candidate, a particular person, and they just want to throw the buzzwords at you to scare you away from any valid critique you have of them, right? Like for example, it'd be like if you're gonna say anything bad about a candidate who is a woman, they would automatically call you sexist, right? And so I understand if people are saying that, like, hey, I have a genuine critique about Kamala and it's substantive and it's based on her record and what she did as DA in California or whatever it might be. And they're just like, you can't talk about that because if you do, you're being sexist against a woman. And I say that because I felt like there was some of these things that kind of happened with Hillary at the time too. But also, to be fair, sometimes there are critiques and things brought against the candidates that really do seem like, well, but if she wasn't a woman, you wouldn't even say that, right? Like Candice really just went here and said, oh, she thoughted her way through to get to the top. You don't find that weird? Like honestly, if it wasn't a guy, sorry, if it was a guy, then that wouldn't be something to say. Right? That wouldn't even be a critique of her. That's not a thing that anyone would actually say. It in my mind, it doesn't even matter how at the end of the day she was introduced to these people. She had to do the job of being the DA of California, right? And she ran for the presidential nomination in 2020. Didn't have a good run, by the way, and that's fair. She got I think torpedoed by Tulsi Gabbard, but we can find that clip maybe later. But at the end of the day, she has a record for a job that she was hired to do, and she did her thing. It's not like she just like was gifted it, and I mean, vice presidents are gifted, so I get that point. But I'm saying, but for the work she did, she was qualified and she did the job. But instead of talking about that, they want to focus on, oh, she thought her way in, and all these things like that, right? And it's funny too, because she talks about, oh, well, that's how she got her way in politics. It's like, well, like, hold on, don't you support Donald Trump? And wasn't Donald Trump's like real foray like mainly into politics? I mean, he's always kind of talked about it, but the biggest thing he was known for was the whole birtherism nonsense with Obama, right? Like, oh, show me the birth certificate. Like, I don't even know if he was born here. And I'm like, and also, do we care about people's personal lives now, and if they're necessarily the most what do you call it, the best role models? Because after electing Donald Trump, conservatives got nothing to stand on when it comes to that, right? Like, let's be honest here. That guy's far from a church boy, right? And personally, I don't care about that stuff, right? So I'm just saying, if I don't care about that stuff, and all the evangelicals and everyone came around to support Donald Trump because they apparently don't care about that stuff either. And let me be clear, they care about it, but they really just care about the person that gets their policies enacted, which, you know what, is fair, because at the end of the day, that's what everyone does. Right? Whether or not they want to admit it or not. So that's fair. I'm not even faulting you on it, but let's not act like all of a sudden we care about that stuff. And so we're going to bring it up about Kamala and say, oh, she did this or she did that. She slept with this person, slept with that person. Like, are we serious right now? Like, you guys are actually being serious right now after, having Donald Trump as the standard bearer for conservatism? Like, that's wild. And look, I want to be very clear, guys. Personally, I do not care about that stuff. I just don't. Like, I don't actually care about it. But let's not act like all of a sudden you care, right? Like, no, let's not do that. Okay. So I saw that attack on her, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even fully sure I support her yet. But when I see stuff like that, I'm like, if this is the best you guys got, then this is going to be funny. And I'm actually really excited to see how a debate with her and Trump would go, because I've seen her look absolutely terrible in a debate setting before, but then I've seen her look really great. And so if she's been practicing, if she's ready, then I think it's going to be a great showing. But yeah, no, I just I wanted to go over that, because that's what you have to start to that's what you have to start to talk about, right? It's going to be interesting, because you have a scenario where they were campaigning against Joe Biden this whole time. And now all of a sudden it's a different candidate, and they're thinking to themselves, well, what do we got on her? Right. And so don't get me wrong. They got hundreds of millions of dollars. They'll do their Oppo research. They'll get their think tanks together. They'll try to figure it out. But I'm like, but if this is their attack, guys, it's some bullshit, right? Let's just call it what it is. Okay. Final reaction of the day. I almost forgot, and I don't know how I could forget, but we got to get oops, sorry guys. We got to get Donald Trump's reaction here. We got to get Donald Trump's reaction, because I mean, up till today, he was going against Joe Biden, right? That was his guy. So let's do it. Let's get Trump's reaction. Okay. Truth Social Donald Trump. All right. I think this is his original reaction. I do not have an account for Truth Social. I feel like, does anyone care about what's on Truth Social besides for what comes from Donald Trump? Like, if he was back on Twitter, I don't think anyone would ever log into Truth Social, for being honest, right? Everyone's on Twitter. We know this. And I think, honestly, if Trump wasn't banned, he would have never started this, right? But, fair play. All right. Anyways, is this the right? Okay, 229. All right, so I think this is the original reaction. Let's just be sure. Truth Social Donald Trump. All right, let's see. He must have been tweeting all day. Let's see. Yeah, he has a couple. He has a couple. There's a couple reactions here. All right, so then it is this one. Okay, cool. All right, so Donald Trump's reaction is: crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve, and never was. He only attained the position of president by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. All of those around him, including his doctor and media, knew that he wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. Okay, got it. And now, look what he's done to our country, with millions of people coming from across our border, totally unchecked and unvetted, many from prisons, mental institutions, and record numbers of terrorists. We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly. Make America great again. Okay. Shout out to Donald Trump, man. This guy is always on brand. He's always on message, and he just never fails to be on brand and on message. But yes, this is how he feels. I don't know. He's in campaign mode, so I don't know how much of this is really I would necessarily agree with, right? But I will say I do agree with this right here. All of those around him, including his doctor and media, knew that that Biden wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. Again, it's that thing where it's like when you say capable of being president, it's like there are multiple jobs, multiple hats the president wears. I wouldn't say not capable, but I would say that they definitely didn't ask the media at this point is what I'm talking about. They definitely didn't ask some of the hard questions like, why did he not do the Super Bowl interview? Or why has he done less press conferences than any other president in modern history to this point? And then there's a stat for that I have in my last video. There's a lot of things that are actually truly concerning that like in reference to the media that they did not even try to poke around or figure out, hey, what is going on with this guy? You know what I mean? And it's kind of crazy because when I think about it, it's like the past 3 weeks and all the pressure they put in like trying to ask questions, it appears like that's what they were doing to make up for what it was that they didn't do before, right? So yeah, it's definitely something that is I'd say I agree with him on because I don't know to what extent they knew, but I do feel like they knew, and they was kind of complicit in not saying anything here. So he's right there. He's right there. I saw some other tweets from Donald Trump. Let me just look for them. Maybe we go over them, and then we'll look to wrap up soon. Let's see. All right. So here's a funny one, right? So we're forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden and his sorry. So we are forced to spend time and money on fighting crooked Joe Biden. I'm not going to try to do his voice. I was really thinking about it, but I'm going to fail at it. So we'll just go here. He polls badly after having a terrible debate and quits the race. Now we have to start all over again. Shouldn't the Republican Party be reimbursed for fraud in that everybody around Joe, including his doctors and the fake news media, knew he was not capable of running for or being president? Just asking. Yeah, I mean, no, you don't get that, right? That's not a thing. But I understand, like, you know, these guys spend a lot of money. These presidential elections are like, when it's all said and done, like billions of dollars are spent on presidential elections. And that's because ultimately they're trying to get influence across the country via ads, via, you know, staff, people running around, knocking on doors, you know, working on the campaign, making calls, working on messaging, flyers, all these flyers, whatever they're doing. They're doing a lot of different things in these campaigns, right? They have ground offices, they have base of operations, all their different states, swing states, polling data, all these different things, analysts. And they're at some point they try to lock in on one guy. So now they have to kind of, you know, steer the whole ship at Kamala. Now, here's the thing. Well, presumptively, it's most likely Kamala. It could be anyone, right? But yeah, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, they could have been talking about her the whole time if they wanted to, but again, it's like, how much do you really have on her? And like I was saying with the thing with Candice, some of the attacks I'm seeing right now don't really seem like the greatest, attacks in the world, right? They're doing personal stuff. And I'm like, if you guys really want to play the personal game, Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump is the guy, like, you can't do it, right? So, I mean, if you have no shame, you can't do it. I'll say that. If you have shame, there we go. Because, not the greatest standard bearer, not a church boy. And again, I personally don't care, but I'm saying if you act like you care, you can't do it, right? And then not look at your guy, right? Just keeping it real, right? Okay. Let's see, what else does he have? I mean, these are always funny. This guy is legendary, to be fair. I think there'll never be another guy in American history, another president or political figure like Donald Trump. He's truly once in a lifetime. Like, I'm thinking right now, I'm literally reading the tweets of a former president and someone who was favored up until today. We'll see where things land to be president again, and this guy just going off like in a hilarious way in a truly death of civility politics and all that stuff. Okay. My debate with crooked Joe Biden, the worst president in the history of the United States, was slated to be broadcast on fake news ABC, the home of George Slopadopoulos, sometime in September. Now that Joe has, not surprisingly, has quit the. Am I getting a seizure? Hold on. Was slated to broadcast on fake news ABC, the home of George Slopadopoulos, sometimes in September. Now that Joe has, not surprisingly, has quit the race. Okay, just okay, it's all right. I think the debate with whomever the radical left Democrats choose should be held on Fox News rather than the very biased ABC. Thank you, Donald J. Trump. I mean, does it really matter at this point? Like, there are some hosts that they're better moderators than others. At this point, they just need a debate, right? Like, they need to do like 3 more debates, because I think Joe was only trying to do like 2. And we kind of see what that was because he bombed on the first one. I think at this point we need like 3. 1 in September, 1 in October, and another in October. Right? Like, we need as much debates as possible at this point. Hopefully Trump will agree to it. I think Trump is always down for a debate. I don't think he would duck it. I would hope he wouldn't duck it. He's not the guy, in my view, who was like that. Joe was trying to duck it. That's 100% the case. So I think Trump would be down. So if they do 1 at Fox News, 1 at ABC, wherever, just do some debates at this point. I mean, we want to see it, right? Does anyone really believe that crooked Joe Biden had COVID? No, he wanted to get out ever since June 27th, the night of the debate, where he was completely obliterated. This guy is Yugi, and he just summoned Exodia on Joe Biden, apparently. That was a big moment in Joe Biden's demise. He's not wrong, though, because up until this point, Joe was going to keep going until November into this debate. Okay, that was the point in time where Joe was revealed for what he is, an incompetent man who should never have been president. Joe is not fit to serve. He's destroying our country. Again, I'm not going to say Joe is incompetent and he should have never been president. I think he actually is probably one of the most qualified people to ever be president. And but I just think, unfortunately, by the time he finally was, age caught up with him. And it's not just age, it's mental decline. Right, because take a guy like the OG or the old guy, Bernie Sanders, and you see someone who is actually older than both Biden and Donald Trump, but is still as sharp as he was, when he was running in 2016. So it's not necessarily age; it's where are you at that particular point with your age, right? Like, it's not necessarily age; it's just where are you, right? How's your mental state? If you start going through what he was going through at 60, you shouldn't have been president. These guys, both Trump and Donald Trump, both Trump and Joe Biden were, pushing 80, and it's not necessarily a problem if they are in good shape, but if they're not, it's going to be a bit of an issue. Speaking of which, this is the final thing I want to go over, and this is in reference to Donald Trump because I saw a hilarious clip that might speak to where people are thinking about going now that Joe Biden is out on the Democratic side, and I wanted to speak to it. I saw a hilarious clip from CNN. Let me get to it real quick. Let's see. Hopefully I have it bookmarked somewhere. What was it? Bakari Sellers, I think. Oh, actually, this is a "Where's Bernie and AOC" moment. When I seen it, it looked like Bernie and AOC. All right. This is actually a hilarious clip I saw because all right. Well, let's go into it and we'll talk about it on the other end real quick.
Because we have work to do. And so I'm going to be on the phone tonight calling delegates, getting them, whipping them up, trying to get them on board for Kamala Harris. I don't think that's going to be a difficult task. And anything else the vice president needs to do, I'll be there. Because right now, Kamala Harris has her work cut out for her. She's running against the oldest nominee for president of the United States in American history. And so when you...
And right there, that is hilarious. Did you guys capture what this guy just did? Bakari Sellers was literally on Bill Maher like a week ago, defending Joe Biden, right? And you know, Bill Maher was talking about, and I'm paraphrasing here. I saw it last week. I don't fully remember everything he said, but the sentiment that is in my memory right now, so take it with a grain of salt, was that, you know, he's basically saying, hey, like, you know, this is the guy, right? And we're gonna defend him. I get it, might some things here and there, but it is what it is. This is the guy. And up to this point, Joe Biden was the older one. I believe Joe Biden's the older one out of Donald Trump and Joe Biden, right? But now that Joe Biden is out, immediately, just like clockwork, like this might like this is what, 2:38 p.m. I think Joe Biden's text went out, his tweet went out. What time was that message posted? I feel like it was 2:00 p.m. Right? Maybe 1, something like that. But it's not even been a couple hours, and he is immediately turning the cannon in the turret from the Joe. Like basically, this is a guy who was sitting around and he was upset that everyone was talking about Joe Biden's age and all these things. And I get it. You know, if you supported Joe Biden's agenda and some of his accomplishments, and then instead of everyone talking about that, all they're talking about is dude looks old right now, or like, you know, dude's in mental decline, whatever. I get it. It could be frustrating, but it's hilarious that it feels like he was waiting for this moment, because now that Joe Biden is out, all the attack, all the fire has instantly went to, oh, and by the way, the Republicans are running the oldest candidate in American history to be president, right? So he just took he redirected. He did a Uno reverse. Okay, Uno reverse, right? He took the very attack that everyone would use against Joe Biden and is now flipping it on Donald Trump. And I feel like this is a preview to what we're going to start seeing a lot now. Democrats are going to come out and say, okay, you got us. Biden's old, but Biden's out now. What about your guy? This is where this is interesting to see in the first day, because we're starting to see the seeds being planted of what the talking points will be for any of these characters. So yeah, this is kind of funny here.
You have this type of change election, when you have this type of generational divide that you have, it's a question of whether or not you want to go backwards with Donald Trump or forward with Kamala Harris. I mean, the man is nearly 80 years old. And so the question is, can he serve another 4 years? I'm not sure he can.
Yeah. You see, and I say, hold on, unless I have that, hold on, let me make sure he wasn't just talking about Joe and he was talking about Trump, because that seems crazy for him, what he just said there. All right, hold on.
Getting them, whipping them up, trying to get them on board for Kamala Harris. I don't think that's going to be a difficult task. And anything else the vice president needs to do, I'll be there, because right now Kamala Harris has her work cut out for her. She's running against the oldest nominee for president of the United States in American history. And so when
okay, all right, just want to be clear, because if I went on that whole diatribe and he was just talking about Biden, then I'd have to say my bad, guys. But yeah, that's hilarious, right? Like he literally just went on that whole thing and said, yeah, well, Kamala will be running against the oldest presidential nominee in history. And it's like, yeah, ironic. Okay. All right, guys. I am going to. There's one last clip I want to go over. I'm just gonna try to find it here. Actually, why did I go away? There's one final clip I want to find, and then I'm gonna wrap up the stream. Thank you guys for joining here with me today. This has been fun. So one more clip, and I will. Kamala Harris right now. Put me in, coach. That's funny. Okay. Please, main attack against her is that she likes to laugh. I'm sure this will work out well. You're gonna see a lot of this on Twitter too. Libs of TikTok is a big conservative Twitter account. They the owner basically likes to troll libs and things that they do. And sometimes the things are pretty hilarious. Sometimes the things are kind of cringe. But right now, what they mainly got on her is that she's kind of goofy and that she laughs. And I'm just like, we're at a point where people are personable. Like, do we care that this girl is laughing like that, or she says goofy things, or like what's? Oh man, there's a phrase. And you know what? Before I wrap it up, let me just get to the phrase that you're probably going to start hearing a lot more of. There's this phrase that Kamala basically always gets clowned for, I think, because she says, do you want to be unburdened by what has been? Right? It's something like that. And hold on, let's see if I can find it. Just a little detour, guys, and we're gonna wrap up soon, okay? I promise. This is not me stretching for content. This is something I'm generally curious about. All right, so real quick, there's this thing now for like progressives or people who are before today, they were slowly starting to accept or be okay with the fact that Kamala Harris might be the Dem nominee, right? And so, yeah, I should have turned off Steam. I have random notifications popping up. Anyways, basically people starting to feel like, okay, I might be okay with Kamala Harris being the nominee, right? And so there is this movement of people calling themselves coconut pilled, right? Yeah, these ads are terrible. Got to get my ad block on. Anyways, it's basically this thing called being coconut pilled, and it comes from this story of Kamala Harris where she was saying something about how does it go? I don't know what's wrong with you, young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree. You exist in the context of all that came before you today, right? And you're gonna keep. People have done a pretty good job, because I think she has used certain phrases a lot, and they have like compilations of her saying it 1,000 times, and it's hilarious. And I'm pretty sure we're all gonna see it at some point. So I should have got it together. Hopefully. I mean, is this it? Let's see. What is this? Let me just duplicate this so I don't lose it. Maybe this is it here.
Everything is in context. My mother she would give us a hard time sometimes, and she would say to us, I don't know what's wrong with you young people. You think you just fell out of a coconut tree? You exist in the context of all in which you live and what came before you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Anyways, it's that coconut tree thing is where people are getting coconut pilled. And then there's this phrase, and I think there is, I'm not gonna lie, that was pretty cringe, but okay. I get it. There's this moment of what can be unburdened by what has been. And I think she says this a lot. And it's a catchphrase, and I think we hopefully we can find it. Let's see. There's a compilation going around. Hopefully they have it. Is this it? Popularized catchphrase dates back to 4-minute supercut, posted on April 30th, 2023 by the RNC. Okay, so they did some oppo on her already at this point, which received over 1,700 likes. Same video as December as well. All right, let's see. This is it.
You know? What can be unburdened by what has been. 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 What we can see, what we believe can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can be unburdened by what has been. What can
All right. Okay. I don't know if I can go through another like 3 minutes of this, but I mean, you get the gist here, right? This is a phrase she says a lot, and I'm pretty sure they're going to be trolling her a lot over the next couple of days with this. So if you hadn't heard it before, welcome to the perspective. You are now unburdened by what has been. Wait, did I say it right? Hold on, one more time.
be unburdened by what has been. What can
Okay, good. Thank you. And thank you for joining me at the perspective, because you will now be unburdened by what has been. All right. So I just expect that you'll probably be hearing this soon or a lot within the next couple of weeks, if she is in fact the nominee. I happen to think she will be. I feel like it's a foregone conclusion. And the real question is who's going to be her VP, but you know, we'll see. We'll see. Okay. Wait, what's the one more time?
be unburdened by what has been. Who we can be, unburdened by who we have been. What can
There are some real trolls. I'm not gonna lie, they're pretty good. They put the music in the background. All right. Okay. We can be unburdened by what has been. All right, guys. Let's get off the detour real quick. Let's bring it back to the final thing I wanted to discuss with you guys today. And we'll start it off with a clip from Van Jones that I know some people are gonna troll him for, because people always feel like Van Jones sometimes goes on CNN and he's a bit over dramatic and people just can't believe it. But let's have a human moment real quick. Let's watch it together. Let's react to it. Let's think about it. Let's talk about it. And then let's use this part right here to sail us out into the end of the stream. Okay? All right, real quick. Van Jones from CNN. Let's bring it back.
Even people who are pushing for this to happen, it's kind of like when your grandpa, you got to take the keys, and everybody, you got to take his keys, you got to take his keys, you got to, and he's fighting and everybody's so frustrated, and then you finally get the keys back, and then you just cry, because this is somebody that you love, this is somebody that you care about, this is somebody who was there for you, this is somebody you wouldn't be here without him, and you have to take something from him. Now, this is not, look, this politics is politics, but this is a human moment for one of the great humans in America. This is a huge moment for him, for his family, for all of us who love him, for all of us who wanted him to get across the finish line. But if you're a young person watching this, this is leadership. This is patriotism. This is what it means to put the country first, and put the party first, and put the cause first. When your arm gets tired, you let somebody else finish pitching the game. That's what Joe Biden has done, and he's done that for all of us. And so I just want to say, I don't know who's going to be the VP, the non-VP. I don't know anything about politics. I just know that I love this man. I care about this man. It was painful every day to sit up here and talk about him like he's just some problem for the party. Wait till we get to the convention. You're going to see people crying, standing, screaming, cheering. He may not get a chance to talk for 10 minutes. We finally get a chance to put our arm around this guy. He did the right thing for this country. He did the right thing for this party. All of us are going to be in this situation someday, and I hope that we take a moment to honor this man and to love this man. I love Joe Biden. I appreciate what he's done, and a lot of people are heartbroken today. Even if it's the right thing, it's still just horrible.
Okay. So I know a lot of people are going to see that clip and they're going to be like, this is Van Jones again being, extra or, whatever. And maybe they personally don't feel that way about Joe Biden the way he did. Understand he's a party loyalist. He's been with the Democrats. I think he was originally part of the Obama administration, but okay. I don't want to get too off topic here, but he's been on CNN messaging for the Democrats and kind of speaking to the pulse that they have, right? And I will say this, you might feel like he's kind of over the top here, but there are I think if we just chill with the politics for a second and we just think about what actually did just happen, if you did have someone in your family who was in a position that they were just not what they used to be, and you had to speak to them and let them know this, and they probably feel like they're still with it, but everyone around them knows they're just not the same anymore. And he mentioned having to take the keys away, tell them you can't drive anymore, it's unsafe, or whatever that might be. And I'm sure people can empathize with that position, right? Because it might be, whether or not you feel this way about Joe or not, it's a situation where, again, they had to, the Democratic Party just had to take the leader and someone who, again, remember 2020 was the highest vote turnout in history, right? So both Joe Biden had the most votes for a presidential candidate ever in history, and then the only person who came second to him was Donald Trump in that same election, with the second most amount of votes ever in presidential, like, I guess, voting history. I don't know why I can't think of the word, but so a lot of people voted for these guys, right? And so a lot of people are still, they're not gonna, like, a lot of people really do support them. I know sometimes we're always in Twitterverse and we're in we're consumed by media, but there's people who really do generally like these guys. Like, this with a Donald Trump, and you might not be able to understand it as well with someone like Joe, but like, there are people who feel the same way that Van feels, right? But like I said, if you take it away from politics and you just take it at a human level, if you had someone in your family who was in this position, and you have to kind of take away, I don't want to say their power, but some of what they're doing and what they like to do, because you feel as though it's the best thing for them right now, and it's kind of sad to see them go into this part of their life. Look, it is truly a sad thing. And so if you're someone around, Joe Biden, and if you're someone who, feels this way about him, or you can at least empathize having someone like that in your family, you can kind of see where Van is coming from, right? But also, I think, regardless of how you feel about Joe, I think we do got to give him credit here, because he did the hard thing right here. And that is leadership. I understand some people are going to be like, oh, but he waited to the end. And look, I feel like that too. I feel like, hey, it would have been nice to see this months ago, so we could have had a primary, but still, credit where credit is due. He did it here. He didn't do it like after the convention or something like that, or, a day before. He responded to the public pressure. It wasn't nice for him. He had a rough 3 weeks. He tried his best. He tried to go out there, do interviews. They didn't go well. He tried his best to see if he could still hold on. And there just was no way for him to flip public perception. So credit for him for reading the tea leaves, looking at polling. We were hearing stuff about this all in the background throughout the weeks. Like, oh, leak says this. He's like, publicly they would say, no, I'm in. But then we'd also hear leaks of like, no, he's considering this. He's trying to see who can win. So at the end of the day, credit where credit is due. The man has stepped down from the position that only a select few will ever in a lifetime see, being the president of the United States. And he stepped away from that, power he had at this point, in a position when it's really terrible for Democrats. It looks really bad to be stepping away at this point. He made the hard call. That is leadership. Hate him or love him, that is absolutely leadership. Again, wish it was sooner, but he did it nonetheless, and he deserves credit for that. So, I will say this, that, again, that's not an easy thing. So shout out to Joe Biden for that. Thank you to Joe Biden for that. I'm glad he did it. Again, as someone who voted for him in 2020, I definitely didn't want to see him going out like this. And it sucks too, because like, you see how hard he's falling right now. Definitely not the way you want to go as a president. You want to be able to do it on your own terms. And I think at the end of the day, this is kind of as close to his own terms as possible, considering he was trying to go for re-election, right? If he had just chosen not to go for re-election, then it would have been none there. It's kind of forced out, but offer the man some grace. He did his thing. He dropped out. I know it wasn't easy, and you got to respect him for that, whether you hate him, love him, or don't care. So, anyways, guys, thank you for joining me on this live stream today. I had fun, and I'm not always going to do political discussions and things like that, but hey, these are things I'm paying attention to as well, and hopefully you enjoyed your time with me here today. Anyways, that's my perspective. What's yours? Let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you haven't already, and subscribe, as I got much more content like this on the way. So until next time, YouTube, peace. Now it's time for me to find a way to end this live stream.